Good afternoon, I'm Lo Chat Yu Antonia. The topic of my essay is virtual space a lesser representation of human experience or an extension of human experience? I'm interested in virtual space since working with the software of Premiere Pro, Blender, and trying to record sound with various kind of equipments. I've not worked with these areas before. It is new to me and it raises my interest in virtual space. I do sculpture since year 2. Sculpture is an object in 3D space, where its property contradict with anything in a computer, which is a virtual space. Sculpture is effortlessly existing solid item for viewers to see, to touch directly without any filter, whereas video might be a captured film of reality, might be a creation of imaginary world. How would this rather subjective representation of actual world changes human experience? Videos like documentary is a record of our planet. It could be a reflection of the actual space, but video gaming might not share the same purpose with documentary. Although both of the examples are in virtual space, they are somehow in contrast in terms of the purpose of making. Virtual space might be a lesser representation of human experience, but it might also be an extension of human experience. To answer this question, I will define the term virtual space and human experience. For the structure of the research paper, I will define the key terms of virtual space and human experience in paragraph 1, then talk about the limits of human experience in virtual space. Following that, the simulation of virtual space will be discussed for explaining the extension of human experience. Lastly, I will draw the topic to a close by a case study. The definition of virtual from the Oxford Advanced Learner's Dictionary is made to appear to exist by the use of computer software, for example on the internet. When people refer to virtual space, according to the modern definition of the Oxford, it refers to the space made to appear by the use of computer software. I cannot agree more of this definition. However, where do the word virtual come from? Does it appear only after the age of technology? According to the online etymology dictionary, virtual means being something in essence or effect, though not actually or in fact, from the mid-15th century. Therefore, I propose that virtual space refer more than just the space made to appear by the use of computer software, but also refer to a reciprocal of the actual world, a space of invisible, non-3D and physically intangible. Examples of the form of virtual space could be cyberspace, fictional writing, paintings, dreams, meditation, thinking, so on and so forth. For human experience, how do we aware of our existence? How is it our common practice that creates the idea that we are in space and that space has certain properties? And how can this understand of the reality space as an experienced reality, inform our construction of virtual spaces? The essay Virtual Space, Spatiality in Virtual Inhibited 3D World responds to its own question. We act in space and we talk about space, and both practices shape our conceptualization of space. The experience of space is not about Euclidean position, but also, and more importantly, about functional and experiential relationship. Therefore, human experience is about functional and experiential relationship, such as human experience of senses, phenomenon of one situated era, human growth, interaction, memories, aspiration, and mortality. etc. Up to this point, we have a clearer meaning of virtual space and human experience. Back to the question, is virtual space a lesser representation of human experience or an extension of human experience? In paragraph 2, we discuss about the limits of human experience in virtual space. According to Stefano Guarini's Virtual World as a Philosophical Tool, How to Philosophize with a Digital Hammer, virtual space acts as the materialization of the will to control and rationally reconstruct the world recorded. Materialization of the reconstructed virtual world of imagination is a limit of human experience. To shape the imaginary world in form of text, readers conceive the descriptive, non-existing world and try to build it in the mind. But the limits include being bound to certain semiotic codes, unchanging the time, non-interactive, and impossible to experience phenomenally. To demonstrate this idea, I would use the virtual space of the Tower of Babylon as an example. For the next section, the extension of human experience will be presented by a digital platform of simulation. Jasper Juhl, a Danish ludologist, discussed the fundamental ontological ambiguity inherent in games and videos. As the title of his book, Half-Real Video Game Between Real Rules and Fictional Worlds, he argued that the contents of video games can be understood as both real if explored from a structuralist ludologic perspective, and effective when embraced from the point of view of their aesthetic and narrative dimensions. The simulation in a virtual world of video games allow players to interact with the undiscovered space, being another identity, experiencing the altered atmosphere. The content of the video games as both real and fictive at the same time opens up a new spectrum of possibilities of decision for participants. The interactive contents of video game, such as the interactive behavior of a specific game elements, can be considered real when they can be considered real, when they can be experienced intelligibly and persistently. Although the actual world and the virtual world differentiate in space and time, persisting of space operates simultaneously in the actual world. In other words, virtual world is happening on a timeline of the present and would make its own history. However, virtual world is not a parallel space of the actual world, as the simulation of different digital platforms have different speed of timeline. In short, the existence in living in digital virtual space, which is the participation in digital virtual world, marked the extension of human experience. I would like to take the cyberspace as a case study to illustrate whether virtual space is a lesser representation of human experience or an extension of human experience. The essay Virtual Space, Spatiality in Virtual Inhabited 3D Worlds mentioned the relationship between space and computer can be and is currently being turned upside down. In this latter approach, the focus is not on creating representation of the real world, but it is on enhancing the real world by putting digital image into our physical and social reality. It is talking about computers out into the physical and social space, thus enhance physical and social reality. Let's say the virtual world of communication of WhatsApp or WeChat as an example. This communication app is undeniably having the limitation of experience that's enjoyed by face-to-face chatting. People are not sharing the same geographical position when talking. The image shown on the screen of the video chat is just an imagery representation of the person. The sound sequences are being altered through filter of microphones in mobile. The virtual space is being a lesser representation of the human experience. However, does a lesser representation of human experience contradict with the extension of human experience? In the spectrum of the virtual space itself, it is not a naturalistic realism computer software. It cannot represent the reality. But the app is an additional tool for communication. In the spectrum of communication, it is another method of contacting others. The experience of humans are extended from face-to-face dialogue to phone-to-phone dialogue. It opens up another way of doing. Therefore, virtual space could sometimes be a lesser representation of human experience, but it is definitely an extension of human experience. For the final project, I want to make a video of 4 worlds, which the world is actually in the same world. The world is represented by one color. There are worlds of red, yellow, green, and blue. The worlds are happened simultaneously in the video. The visibility of the world depends on the color filter. The prepared color filter can be switched by the viewers themselves when watching the virtual space of the video. I intended to place the 4 color filter as sliding door in front of the video. However, due to limitation of money, I would make a glasses of color filter to replace the idea of sliding door plane. The idea of the project is overlapping world and the extension of human experience. The imagery world in the video are various different worlds on the same timeline that is happening in the present, as if the overlap of virtual space and the actual space. It refers to the simulation discussed in the previous parts. Apart from the interpretation of operating simultaneously in the virtual and actual space, it could be interpreted in other ways because this idea comes from both the essay topic and my reflection of the things that I've learned in the lessons. In The Sound of Forest, why do different species of animals hear and recognize their mates in such a noisy environment? It is because they hear different range of frequency corresponds to the total spectrum of sound. None can hear sound created by all creatures. But living beings share the space of communication. There are existing overlapping sounds that human beings are unable to hear. But what about the vision? Is there possibilities that there are invisible creatures penetrating our bodies, living in the same world with us, but overlapping invisibly with human? Thus, this project could also be interpreted as questioning the vision of human and the existence of the invisibility. This example is just an explanation of how the video would be like, but I will try to model the 4 worlds in Blender and merge it into one video at the end. This is the end of my presentation and looking forward to hearing your feedbacks.